Hi and welcome back. We're going to move on to body budget and emotions in this video. So let's quickly look back over what we used in our unmet needs volcano video, and this is about anger and the hidden feeling words. So on a very practical level, we can see how somebody is acting and feeling can have very fine nuanced drives in the background that we can find quite specific words for. So we were looking at how what appears on the surface and can be expressed as I am angry might actually be a feeling of being in pain or feel guilty or feel inferior or feel left out. Many drivers and ways of really investigating that angry word. So the emotions wheel, you'll find an emotions wheel in the pack. There is some evidence to suggest that what we're about to look at about the body budget and emotions, the way those two things link together, the more use of emotional language, the better somebody is at categorizing their physiological sensations as the emotions and categorizing it. Oh, I'm surprised. Well, were you startled? Or are you? I'm surprised by that. Are you confused? So if you're the better you are at getting down to the specifics of an emotion, then the better that can actually be linked to your long-term health outcomes. Okay, so one of the pack that you'll get from Access to today includes games and body budget balance chart, a diary to explore how these things, how demands on our system can be experienced in different ways. So for example, the body budget balance here includes the stresses and demands of everyday life, how much sleep and rest that you've had, how much exercise you've got, what your diet has been like, and then you record, what is your motivational levels like, what is your mood like, what is your mental focus like. And also there are emotional compass sheets in there, so it breaks down emotions into different physiological states of valence. Is it pleasant or unpleasant? And are you a more high energy or low energy? So if I'm low energy, unpleasant, what does that tell me? What emotional words would I use? If I'm high energy and a really pleasant experience, what kind of words would I use? And how to split them down into the emotional compass. There's just a little game which is a roll the dice kind of game, which you get a dice you can make in the pack. So you get sent back or sent forward depending on how well you're meeting the needs of your body, and how that links with your emotions. Little social stories in there as well. So it's quite a complicated system. It's the newer understanding of emotions. Lisa Feldman Barrett is one of the lead names in this area of research. She herself, I think it was understanding that during her studies, when she tried to replicate studies that were about emotions, that being set human emotions, she couldn't accurately replicate the studies that had been previously done. So it led her to explore what human emotions were really about. And from a brain neuroscience point of view, our emotions are a way that we learn socially from our families and culturally from the culture that we grow up in, how to label our physiological states, our interoceptive states, so how aware we are internally about what's going on. So the areas of the brain that come into play in this are the default mode network that we've pointed to before when we've talked about the salience network. The salience network, so the processing what is important enough to drive me to take action and undertake a task to meet the needs of my body and or my long-term survival. So that might be a social interaction need, because I need to have a good social network in order to help ensure my long-term survival. And the cortical hub network. So I think frontal tub, some sort of, is basically where a lot of information is shared strongly in certain areas of the brain that connect a lot of different areas and are processing and keeping different areas of the brain up to date about what's going on in other areas of the brain. So, and if you layer those three things together, the red here in this image of the default mode network, which is the thing that's, if you remember, it's the self-referential, it's the simulation of reality, it's using our memory of what has happened before, plus envisaging into the future, imagining what the future might be. So that process of what does this all mean to me between history and moving forward in that default mode network, and how we can have little aha moments and understandings and play things out before we test them in reality. And it also helps form and create our sense of the real world around us. Add into that communicating with the brain and the salience network of, is this important to me right now? What coming in is important to me? How can I use what I know in my default mode network? How can I use that to predict what to do next? That's your entire brain, basically. Red plus purple plus blue there is pretty much the whole brain. So it's understanding that the brain is this computer. Computer is a very limiting word, but it's in itself in a dark box. It doesn't have the information about the world. It has a drive to survive and to then connect socially, and then to pass on genes and information to the next generation. That is the drive of life. So your neurology and your brain, their number one job is keep you alive, keep you healthy, pass those genes on. It does this by creating different states in you, levels of agitation, levels of energy, low energy that when you need to rest, or high energy when you might be very socially interactive, or you might need to fight for your life, which would be a negative but high energy, or when you might need to just go out shopping or go hunting for food or go picking fruit from trees. So we have all these different physiological states that our interoception tells us how we're feeling, and our brain kind of predicts how to meet those needs of the body, and how to keep you safe. So it will stick to habitual patterns that it knows are safe, and it will do so it will use a path that will take up the least energy possible, because the more energy it saves, the less energy it needs to replenish. So everyday life and stresses, when those come along, they're being balanced constantly by the brain as to, well, am I well fed? Am I well rested? Do I have good social connections? Have I had good exercise? Am I hydrated? All of these kind of things. That gives me a certain amount of physical strength and health and fitness and long-term health, to then, as demands come in, as stresses come in, they use up my energy. Do I have the energy to meet that demand? And those all become what we can either experience interoceptively. Some people have clearer interoception than others. And then our parents, or our caregivers, teach us language for those feelings. It's an automatic process. In most familial type situations, a little one falls over and bashes their knee. Oh, you must be feeling so sad, or oh, that must hurt, or oh, you look really happy, and oh, isn't this fun? And we're given language all the time, culturally, from our culture, because in some cultures, to be sensitive and emotional will be prized, and so the emotions will be given lots of very nuanced language, and will be processed within the family in a safe and connected way. And in some cultures, emotions will be less valued, but physically getting up and over things and being stoic about stuff will be valued. Different physiological looks, looking in the eyes or not looking in the eyes, can very much depend on culture. How you respect and interact with other people will depend on culture. So your brain is being trained by all of these experiences the whole time, and then it continues constantly to predict what your needs are, how to meet them in the safest, most energy efficient way possible. Um, for our neurodivergent young people, uh, this there's more um, there's more imbalance in this, in as far as you may be having high energy loads of dealing with sensory sensitivity. You will be dealing with high rejection, social um, loads of not being so accepted in your natural way of being. So, you're get given invalidating statements like, oh, you're being too sensitive, or you're overthinking things and overcomplicating things, or, not naturally morning people to be organized and turn up and be at school in the morning and in our uniform all nice and clean, or we're from a neuro divergent family where it's always a bit of a stress and a chaos to get out of the door. And whereas, so all of those things have an energetic toll on us, in addition to am I hungry, am I thirsty, etc. Plus we have, as has been I was talking about at the beginning of this video, the understanding and being able to translate all of this interoceptive experience, which you might have as a neurodivergent person. In the sensory input pack, it points to the differences in that. So I might be quite resistant to those kind of inputs, or I might be very seeking of those kind of inputs. I might have high interoceptive awareness and look for a language to describe that. But what if we're living in a time where it's like, oh, I'm stressed, or I'm anxious, rather than breaking down and into finer emotions. If you've got those fine emotions to help develop a language to communicate how you're feeling, to label and understand how you're feeling on the inside, then that helps you meet those needs, especially when you understand that what your interoceptive senses are sensing are imbalances in this body budget of, I need to be well fed, I need to be well watered, I need to be socially cared for. So these are those volcano of unmet needs. If we can experience it in ways where we can specify how we're feeling, turn it into accurate description, then it's better for our health. So emotional language can really help with that, because it helps us understand perhaps what our need is. Because our need in the moment might be for autonomy, for competence, for connection. But if we have the right words, that helps us meet those needs, because it helps us identify them. In the general population, alexithymia, so that would be struggles or challenges or slower processing of emotional states, which is putting an emotional language onto the interoceptive state. In the general population, it's estimated to be about 10%. So that could be low interoceptive sensing that then is coupled with, so then you don't have a sensation that you would give an emotional name to. In the autistic community, that is estimated to be 50 to 60% of the autistic population as being alexithymic. So is that low interoceptive sensations, which again is associated with ADHD, for example, where lower interoceptive sensations can mean that unless your body is telling you something is urgently needs doing now, a lot of the signals get ignored. So, for example, in ADHD, managing physiological needs such as going to the toilet and things like that can take a neurodivergent body longer to get the hang of paying attention to those interoceptive senses as well. So our neurodivergent young people have a lot of additional needs in meeting this allostatic load. So allostatic is the process of the body changing, the body budget going up and down, and what the brain is doing to meet all of the demands of that budget to make sure it can stay healthy and alive for as long as possible. So that's how our body budget links to our emotions, and how developing language to express those states helps us in the long term. So I think that's as much as we're going to cover in this video.